Design Bitcoin for everyone. Why did we decide to title it that?
So that's what it says on our homepage.
So
because we think that it's important to make Bitcoin more intuitive and accessible for everyone.
I've always been attracted to like design on the border of technology because new like UI challenges and UX patterns emerge. So I was attracted to Bitcoin for that reason. There's a lot of complexity that I like. Yeah, and just a lot of crazy people.
This community, at least definitely in the wider open source design community and even within the Bitcoin community, it's still not that visible. So even just like a lot of it, I feel can be quite introductory as well. Like I feel like what we've got here is just a nice, slick kind of introduction to the community as opposed to like deep diving into anything. Like
it's probably more of a behind the scenes, isn't it? Like how it works, or
15 minutes. What do I want people to get out of this? Like, do we want to leave time for questions? Like, is it visibility, like Connor's saying? Like, what's the goal? Like, because that would inform the title or maybe the amount of information we're putting in each slide.
Like, are we telling people how to design Bitcoin for everyone, or like
we're showing them how we're doing it?
Thank you for kicking me off here, Paolo. I will talk about how we're doing it, but let's start with a little bit of background. So my name is Christopher Ono. I am here to represent the Bitcoin design community. And as you may know, Bitcoin is magic internet money. Add something new to the internet. We're used to transferring information super fast around the whole world, but we also know everything on the internet can be copied. And Bitcoin has changed that. It has managed that there's a scarcity, that there are things that can be copied, and that is value. So it's an internet native currency, and it allows us to store value online and to exchange that very, very easily and seamlessly. It was proposed in 2008 in a white paper by an anonymous person or group of people called Satoshi Nakamoto. We don't know who they are, but it was launched in 2009 as an open source project, fully embracing open source and decentralization and all of those good things. And now in 2021, we have about 100 million people who have Bitcoin wallets and who store value, who transfer value around the world. And as this user base has grown over time, it has shifted from those first initial people who are very tech focused, and now we have a global audience. And as it keeps growing and it's proven that it's robust and it works, that audience keeps evolving, and the interaction needs are changing. So it needs to become more accessible. It needs to be easier to use. So everybody around the world, people who don't have access to traditional finance potentially, that they can also interact with this, and it helps them in their needs. And now user-centered design is well positioned to help out with this continued growth and evolution of Bitcoin. At least that's what we believe in. So a lot of us in the Bitcoin design community, for some reason we got into this field. We were fascinated by it. We wanted to do some work. We saw problems we wanted to solve in design and user experiences. But very soon we realized that this is not very well suited for designers. First of all, there are very few designers. They're spread across this whole ecosystem. There are very few resources, very few best practices, and it was really made it difficult. So the idea came up to form a Bitcoin design community, to create space for people to meet and exchange and discuss and create those resources that everybody wants, and to help each other do good work. We have a website now, bitcoin.design. So we started this about half a year ago. You can go to our website, get some basic information about what we're doing. And from the beginning, we try to embrace creativity and the voice of all the individuals in this community. For example, this header banner here was created by Alexa, and you can click the submit your own button here right over my head. And it takes you to a page where you can submit your own homepage banner, and it will rotate with all the other banners that were submitted. So from the very first impression, we try to say, here's like a space for design and creativity. Our more transient conversation happens on Slack. You can join via bitcoindesigners.org. a bit over 800 people now across almost all the time zones in the world, and a lot of discussion across all kinds of different topics, from onboarding or more technical things and payments and design reviews. So Slack is private and more transient. GitHub is kind of where we form consensus around, where we discuss our more long-term coordination things and our processes, things like, who owns the domain and how is that managed. We also have our website up there and the Bitcoin Design Guide project that we're working on, and it's public and it's easy to see and observe. It's a very transparent place to see all the activity that's happening and what we're working on. Our newsletter helps all of those people who are not 24/7 on Slack, who have other things to do in their lives. Every 3 weeks, they get an email in their inbox with a short, precise summary about what was done recently, what's happening, what's coming up, potentially, opportunities to help out with different things. Always very short and precise. The other thing we're doing is we have weekly calls and we rotate between a few different formats. So the Bitcoin Design Community calls are an open format where everybody can show up, and we have more open and loose discussion, sometimes presentations, sometimes different people host and organize them, and anybody can suggest topics, sometimes things that are very timely, governance things, sometimes it's just, open conversation and chatting. The second thing that we do are Bitcoin design reviews, and those are way more focused. That's where we try to get projects or designers to come in and sign up beforehand, provide some information about a design problem they have or something they'd like to get feedback on. And then we try to give very focused and organized feedback, and also open up, potential doors for future collaboration. As I mentioned, we have a design guide project, a big project that kind of hopefully everyone in the community feels like they can work on. And we have every 3 weeks we have this jam session on there to also discuss what's happening in that project and organize and push things forward. There are also calls organized by community members. For example, this design sprint for merchants organized by Johns. So merchants also want to accept Bitcoin in their stores, and there's specific software being developed for that. And Johns organized a design sprint with the people working on some of that software to help identify user needs and all those things. And they were not familiar with the design sprint format, so we've introduced them to that as well. There was also a lot of interest in using Figma and a lot of questions about how to use Figma. So we had a crash course on that a lot of developers actually showed up. Lots of interest from the developer side. That was interesting. So we have a lot of different people working on all kinds of things, whatever they happen to be passionate about, from different types of surveys to podcasts to art projects, UI kits, different research, and all kinds of things. And then we have this community project, the Bitcoin Design Guide. You can think of it as the human interface guidelines like Apple has, or material design, where we try to bring all the best practices together and not prescribe what to do, but provide the information designers need to make good decisions for whatever problems they're trying to solve. And this also there's a whole section on getting started, which is meant for those new designers that are potentially struggling to figure out what to do with Bitcoin, how to see themselves in this open source world, and why Bitcoin is so different than things that they may know. There are also things like the visual language of Bitcoin, because it does not have a slick brand by a fancy agency. It has a visual language that evolved over time simply out of the community activity and the activity around Bitcoin. So laying out all those things will hopefully allow designers to more quickly get started in the field, in this area, and then we go deeper into very specific and unique areas of design that are specific to Bitcoin. So it's a big work in progress, but I'm very excited about the progress on this one. So as I mentioned already, we're trying to embrace open source, the best of open source, but we're also trying to figure out what open design is like and what that means. Because not everything in open source, all those practices that were established over the decades, they work so well for designers. Even just if you look at design tools, Figma does not have files, and so they cannot be checked into GitHub, for example. So these whole collaboration mechanisms that we know from kind of the Git-based development don't really work so well for designers. They're kind of counterintuitive. They're kind of hard to get into and learn. And some of them don't even work so well for the tools that we're using. So we're trying to pick the best of open source, make some tweaks, add some new processes, and figure out ways that both designers and developers and everybody else can work with design, solve design problems in a way that they're comfortable with and that they can be productive with. So the worst scenario is always, and this is a stereotype here, of course, that we have developers on the one side and they just want to code stuff and it's functional and ugly. And then we have designers on the other side. They just want to make things look cool and it's just not realistic. And we're trying to, first of all, change that dynamic, get everybody to collaborate and consider the same things, which ideally are the user needs, and then use the tools of development, use the tools of design to make something together. And then we also try to, take it a step further here, because there aren't just these stereotypes of designers and developers. People are complex. There are different roles. Some people want to translate. Some people do user research. Some people really want to do community management or project management. And all of those are valid and important and needed. And then there's also the user, so we can try to get them more involved in this process. So from those stereotypes, it's a long way to get here. And we're trying in 2021, we're going to try to sort through a lot of this stuff. Here's another way to look at it, and this is not a perfect representation here. We try to pick some of these relationships here, like the interactions between designers and open source projects. And designer is not equal to designer. Some designers, let's say they really love, building out a brand or a visual style, and they're more interested in short-term collaborations, or they might be focused on one particular topic like onboarding or so. And other designers prefer being embedded in a project for a long period of time and slowly iterate and see a project grow and have relationships with everybody in the project. They're very different roles, and we're trying to help define those and facilitate for people to find those roles that they're comfortable with. And on the other hand, projects, designers can't just bump into projects. Projects need to be open to accepting designers, accepting design processes. So we're also trying to figure out how we can make that happen. User research is a little bit tricky in Bitcoin because we don't know who those users are. There's a big focus on anonymity and privacy. So we're trying to sort through how we can do good user research. We're trying to gather research references, so everything we come up with in the guide, a lot of decisions we make are also informed very well. And Bitcoin being a global phenomenon doesn't really make it that much easier, but we're trying to work through that. And then, of course, as I already mentioned before, ideally the Bitcoin design community can not just for designers be this go-to place, but projects can feel comfortable and say, hey, I have a design problem here I want to solve. Hey, we're looking for a designer. And ideally we can have this smooth back and forth and collaboration between everyone. So some of our more immediate next steps here in the next 3 months, end of the first quarter 2021, we are hoping to push a first version of the Bitcoin Design Guide live. Ideally that covers the majority of the content, looks pretty good. It's fairly complete to help allow people to solve problems, or the most common problems at least they come across when working on Bitcoin projects. And then we really need to collaborate with different projects. So our ideas about open design and the design collaboration, we really need to put those to the test and work directly with projects and integrate a lot of the work into those projects that we're working with and see results and get that user feedback in the end. And hopefully that allows us to validate all of our ideas and will make that Bitcoin Design Guide so much better because then it's been proven in the real world. And the big thing is we need to mature. The community is 6 months old now. Lots of big ideas, lots of excitement here, lots of activity. But we need to see how it all pans out. And for that, we need to experiment and test and iterate. I find that really exciting here. And a conference like this is also perfect to open up conversations and learn from others. So I hope we can get in touch here with a lot of people. So thank you for listening. Thanks for the Bitcoin Design community members who helped with these presentations. And thanks to Pablo Stanley, who made these illustrations of all those people that were in these slides here. And now let's open it up for QA. Thank you.